mentioned Taiwan earlier about Ukraine and Russia invading Ukraine could embolden China to invade Taiwan. That's one of the biggest flashpoints, as you know, in the U.S.-China relationship. And President Biden has repeatedly said that U.S. forces would defend Taiwan if China invades. Would you make that same commitment?
Well, I think he's looking at this the wrong way. It's about preventing war. So what will prevent China from even going into Taiwan in the first place? There are two things that China and Russia never wanted us to have. They never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We need to do both of those things. Strong militaries don't start wars. Strong militaries prevent wars. That's the first thing that we have to know.
So
the second thing is, hold on, I'm getting there. The second thing is, we should be supplying the Taiwanese military what they need to do to defend themselves. So I hosted the Taiwanese ambassador several months ago and brought her to the South Carolina Army National Guard so she could see how we train up our citizens, what we do, what they need to be doing in Taiwan to defend themselves. You go and make sure that you lift them up so that they can do for themselves like the Ukrainians are doing for themselves. But when China sees that Taiwan has got the backing of their allies, and when China sees that Ukraine just beat Russia, they won't even move into Taiwan. That should be our goal.
One of the things about the United States vis-a-vis Taiwan is there used to be a thing called strategic ambiguity where the U.S. president, I know you know this, where the U.S. president would not say directly one way or the other, would U.S. forces defend Taiwan if China invaded? And President Biden broke with that. And I'm wondering if you would too.
No, what I will tell you is we are going to make sure they have the equipment, the ammunition, and the training to win themselves. You know, it's been controversial on what we do with this Russian-Ukrainian war, but I'll tell you this. This is bigger than Ukraine. This is a war about freedom, and it's one we have to win. You look at those Ukrainians and what they do when Russia invaded their freedoms. They moved in there, went to the front lines, and fought for their country. The women said, we're not going to stay back. They made Molotov cocktails to defend their country. Everybody gave them 5 days to survive. But yet their passion and their will pushed them forward. What we have to understand is a win for Ukraine is a win for all of us, because tyrants tell us exactly what they're going to do. What we heard, China said they were going to take Hong Kong, they did it. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine, we watched that happen. China says Taiwan's next, we better believe them. Russia said Poland and the Baltics are next. If that happens, we're looking at a world war. This is about preventing war. And so the way you prevent war is not that we give cash to Ukraine, not that we put troops on the ground, but that we get with our allies and we make sure that we give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. Because when Ukraine wins, that sends a message to China with Taiwan. It sends a message to Iran that wants to build a bomb. It sends a message to North Korea testing ballistic missiles. And it sends a message to Russia that it's over. That's what we have to do. And keep in mind, everybody wants to know, well, how does this war end? It would end in a day if Russia would pull out. If Ukraine pulls out, then we're all looking at a world war.
So this is a real issue that distinguishes you from some of your opponents. Former President Trump has refused to say whether he believes Russia should win the war or if Putin is a war criminal. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis referred to Russia's invasion of Ukraine as a, quote, territorial dispute. What do you think of that?
I think that that's a mistake that too many have made. That's exactly what got the Europeans in this position with Russia in the first place, is that they're too trustful. You can't be trustful of a regime that goes in and tries to take away people's freedoms. What we need to understand is that Ukraine has the ability to win, but we have to think bigger than that. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see this through. We have to finish it.
If I misspoke, I meant to say that Trump refused to say whether he believes Ukraine should win the war, but you obviously knew what I was talking about. You have called Putin a, quote, evil tyrant, and you've said he cannot be trusted. How do you deal with a foreign leader that you cannot trust?
Well, first of all, let's look at where we are. So you've got Russia invading Ukraine. You've got North Korea testing ballistic missiles. You've got Iran trying to build a bomb. We've got chaos everywhere, right? But none of that would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. The idea that we left Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our friends. More importantly, think about what that told our enemies. So now you have this happening. None of this should have happened. Biden had a whole year to prevent that war in Ukraine, and he didn't do it. Russia surrounded Ukraine. Where was everybody? There was an opportunity to stop it. That's what we have to make sure of. So when you're dealing with Russia and China, I'll give you an example. The Russian plane knocked down our U.S. drone a couple weeks ago. Remember that? What did we do about it? Nothing. You know what I would have done if I was president? Put 2 drones up there and a fighter jet and put our naval fleet back in the Black Sea because it never should have left in the first place.
Let me ask you, just because you brought up the Afghanistan withdrawal, did you disagree with the peace treaty that was negotiated by Secretary Pompeo and President Trump that set the stage for the withdrawal in 2021?
You can never trust the Taliban. They are terrorists. They are terrorists. And part of what it means to keep America safe is to know who your enemy is. And when your enemy, this is what they did with the Iran deal. When they went and gave all of that cash to get into the Iran deal, they thought that Iran would stop. This is a regime that says death to America, death to Israel every day. No amount of money changes the way they think. So when you go to the Taliban, yeah, they wanted all of that money. And by the way, Biden left them $7 billion worth of military equipment while they hauled out of there in the middle of the night. But when you pay terrorists off, all they do is more terrorism. That doesn't ever keep anyone safe. Those are the lessons we need to learn. We can't keep repeating these same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah, I think they left the equipment. It's a distinction without a difference. They left the equipment for the Afghan military, but then the Afghan military dissolved.
Afghan military had already fallen. Right. We knew there was they had hauled it out of Afghanistan.
So you were the U.S. ambassador to the UN under President Trump, as I've noted. On Friday, Mr. Trump congratulated Kim Jong-un because North Korea had ascended to a leadership role in the World Health Organization. What was your reaction to that, and were you uncomfortable with how Mr. Trump dealt with and how his attitude was towards Kim Jong-un while you worked at the UN?
I mean, Kim Jong-un is a thug. And if you see what he has done to his own people in North Korea, when money went to North Korea, it didn't go to feed their people. It went to feed their nuclear program. There's nothing good or decent about Kim Jong-un. There's no reason we should ever congratulate the fact that they are now vice chair of the World Health Organization. And it goes to the fact that also the World Health Organization is a farce to start with. We saw that during COVID.
So it did bother you, and you didn't like his congratulating of Kim Jong-un, and you didn't like how he dealt with him?
I don't think we ever should congratulate dictators. Congratulate our friends. Don't congratulate our enemies. It emboldens them when we do that.